Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to St. Lucie Public Schools Facebook Live. Today we're going to cover a lot of new information and maybe review some information from the past for those of you who have not participated before in our sessions. Let's start by introducing who is here with me in the studio today. I'm Helen Weil, Chief Academic Officer, and I'm here with Julia Hilburn. She is a technology specialist. And also Ms. Lydia Martin, our Chief of Communications. So today, first, let's go over what we're going to cover today in our agenda. We want to make sure through this opportunity to communicate with you that we give you the latest updates. So we do have a lot to cover today. On our agenda, we are going to talk about the process that you will use if you want to change your selection of your school option between My School Online or the traditional setting. We are also going to go over the quarantine process. We're also going to talk about attendance in My School Online and student expectations for behavior as well as following the rules of the teacher each day. And we're going to talk about technology and the common issues that we're seeing so that we can provide you support and assistance right here today on Facebook Live. And we're going to talk about parent involvement and what does parent involvement actually look like in virtual learning. So let's go on and talk about the change request process. And if you could show the slide that shares the information, the details with our listeners. We are going to be opening up the change process on September 14th through September 18th. We had done a temporary freeze, and the reason for that is that the schools were having so many changes that it was really becoming a challenge to lock down schedules and get to the scheduling balancing that we do every year. And some of you have noticed that the class sizes in my school in particular are larger than you would like to see. In some cases, that is a matter of the actual fact in virtual school that we do have a little bit larger classes. But in some cases, they are larger than we would expect or we would continue. But because of the changes, we weren't able to get to the balancing aspect. Once we get through this final round of changes for this semester, we will be able to balance that and make sure that all of the class sizes are reasonable and that the teachers will be able to pay attention to every child in their classroom. The week after the 14th, the schools will revise their master schedule to meet the needs, or if the requests are so high in number that the whole schedule needs to change, they will take care of that. And then your first day with the new schedule will be September 28th. I want to encourage all of you parents to make your decisions very carefully. This will be a decision that is locked in for first semester so that we can be sure that everyone gets a quality education. So at the end of first semester, we will be checking with everyone again to see if circumstances have changed in your family, and then we would give you the opportunity to make another change. So let's talk a little bit about those students that are in traditional school right now. You will see that there might be there might be a situation where a student or a class will have to quarantine. I want to assure you that we are taking great precautions in our schools for health and safety. All of our health and safety protocols are going so well. With that said, there are times when somebody feels that they might be positive or they have a confirmed positive test for COVID. When that happens, we work very closely with the health department to identify anyone who may have been exposed. And then we want to make sure that everyone is notified and that we ask or that we require people to quarantine. And that could be the student or the teacher. If your child is going to be quarantined, you will receive a letter from the health department as well as from the school district that day as soon as we become aware. You will also receive a laptop if you need one. You will receive any consumables that are appropriate for your child's grade level and information on how to get started with your learning. And all parents in the school will receive a school messenger call so that you know what is going on in your child's school if your child is not affected directly. With that said, the child may be quarantined and may be the only child in a class. And in that case, the student will still receive all of that same information so that they can access their work on Canvas. Beyond that, the teacher may be quarantined along with the class. And when that happens, if the teacher is well, they will be teaching from home and the learning will continue through Teams and Canvas. And Julia will be talking about that in a little bit. And there may be a circumstance where only the teacher is quarantined. In those cases, there will be a substitute providing supervision within the classroom. But if the teacher is well, they will indeed be teaching the lesson through Teams into the classroom. So it's really an excellent plan for ensuring that your children continue their learning despite the challenges of the disruption that COVID is causing and can cause within a school building. Let's move on and talk about attendance and student expectations. One of the questions that keeps coming up is about the cameras. The cameras are required to be turned on unless the teacher tells you that you can turn them off. If you are uncomfortable with your child having the camera on and you would like more privacy, please ask your child to put the blur function on or create a background that is acceptable to the teacher. And the teacher will be able to show the student how to do that. And Julia might be able to show you today, actually. The microphone should be off at all times until the teacher does direct your child to turn the microphone on. We also are getting questions about what is appropriate within the chats function. The chats function is an important component of Teams so that the children can communicate with each other, whether it be group learning or in response to the teacher's questions, and so that the teacher can communicate with the students. It is also one way for the teacher to know who is in attendance if it happens to be a time when he or she has asked for the cameras to be off. However, the chats are no different than classroom conversation in traditional school. And it is important that all students follow the same expectations of appropriate language and appropriate conduct in the chats or on camera for that matter. And I want to remind our parents that the code of conduct is still in effect. And if there is misbehavior, your child could receive a referral to the dean and you could receive a call or consequences for that behavior. So please emphasize that with your children because it is for the benefit of all children in the class, everybody in the school. So that's really important. For additional expectations regarding attendance, I want to remind everybody that students must attend all of their classes and they must remain in class for the entire time. When the camera is off, they still need to do the work that the teacher has directed, and they must arrive on time. And again, follow the direction of the teacher every day as to when the camera must be on and when it must be off. I was asked why the camera would ever be off. There are times when students are going to be doing independent work, and our intent was not that the student would have to be attached to their computer every minute of the school day. So they will have independent work, group work, projects, and so on. And there's also times when the teacher might be using the camera with a small group of students to provide intervention or enrichment. So that would be why. At this time, let's move on to some technology updates. As you know, on the very first day of school, we had an issue with our network. So we know you're asking the question, is it a district issue? Is it a tech problem that the district is having? And the truth is, yes, it very well could be. However, there's a lot of other reasons why you could be experiencing a slowdown or not be able to access the learning on any given day. And some of those reasons could include your home network is having an issue, or you're trying to do it on a cell phone and your cell phone service is troubled that day. And also, if you were using Internet Essentials, it is not quite as robust as some of the other providers, so you might see that, or if you're using a hotspot. Also, sometimes it can be the browser itself. And in addition, there could be something that's actually happening specific to Teams or Canvas, which is usually related to schedule changes. And it does take 24 hours for a student to be attached to a course. So it could be any number of things, including those that I just listed. But how would you know? I'm going to ask Julia to talk to us about how would you know without making a phone call if it was a district issue. Julia.
Yes, great question. So the district has just released on the main district website. So when you log into the district website and you scroll down a little bit to the right, you are going to see a box that is now listed with all of our programs that your children will be using for My School Online. Within that box, you will be able to see what the status is of those programs. The first one listed is our network. So if we are having a district network issue, it will show you right there, as well as Teams and Canvas, iReady, they are all listed there. So the first step, if you are having issues with any of those programs, would be to check the district website and see if it is district-wide. If it is, I would check back a little later. We are working on resolving all of those as quick as possible. If it is not a district-wide issue, then that would be the troubleshooting that you would take with your own device. Is it your network and your Wi-Fi isn't connected? Can you get on from another device or a cell phone? Use the app at that time. And if all else fails, you can call the help desk, and there is someone there waiting to help you and troubleshoot those issues with you.
Thank you, Julia. While we are talking about technology, let's go ahead at this time and talk about technology updates that have been happening. And Julia sits on our help desk and talks to students and teachers if they are having difficulty accessing a program or navigating. And so I've asked her to talk about some of the things that she hears commonly, and also to talk about Teams, share some tips and hints for how to navigate in Teams and in Canvas. So Julia, let's move over to your slides. I should say that we're not going live today in a class like we have previously, because we don't want to show students who are right now engaged with their teachers online. And due to confidentiality, we don't want to show their pictures. So she is using slides today to illustrate Teams and Canvas for you. Let's move over to Julia.
Wonderful. So I will show you this first slide. And one of the top questions that we are receiving is, where does my child access the live meeting with their teacher inside of Teams? The answer to this is a little different for each teacher, each grade level. So I do have a couple screenshots here that we will walk you through. This first one is the view of Microsoft Teams. As you can see where the arrow is pointing, your child would click on Teams, and then all of their classes would be listed here for them. Once they click into the Teams, they can either go to the calendar view, which I believe is the next slide, and inside the calendar view, it will show you, if the teacher has set it up this way, how to join the meeting. You can see down in the bottom right corner, there is a dark purple banner. That would be the meeting that is happening at that current time, so that class period. And then there's a join button. It's directly on the screen for your child to click. Once they click join, it will bring them to enter the meeting, where they are prompted to turn off their microphone. They can enter the meeting already with their background either blurred or with one of those fun backgrounds picked for them, so you don't have to show anything in your house, and then they can enter the meeting. The next option would be going actually into the team. So that's this view that you're seeing right now. They would go into their class team, and then first thing to check would just be what is on that general channel where the first arrow is pointing, and then what has the teacher posted. So in this view, you can see that this meeting occurs frequently and that they can join the meeting directly from that banner. It does list the time period and the days that that meeting will occur. The next option that I'm going to show you is also in the Teams view. So the first arrow on the left is pointing into the team. And then some of our teachers are creating a meeting links channel. We are working with teachers to create the best consistency across classes. So you may see more of this coming, but the meeting links channel would be something that they created. And then they post an announcement with the link for that meeting right there on the right side, so it's clear and concise and easy for your students to navigate. One of the other things that we are seeing that I would just like to mention is, as Dr. Wild mentioned last week, was about some of the issues we were having when we first started on Monday and Tuesday. And I'm sure you have seen a significant improvement since Monday and Tuesday of last week. Our district, as well as Microsoft, is working every day to improve little tweaks and things that are happening with the platform itself. So hopefully everything is going to iron itself out in this near future and into next week.
Okay, and Julia, was there anything that you'd like to share in Canvas that you haven't yet shared?
Sure. Some of the questions that we've received about Canvas is regarding where does my child submit anything that the teacher is asking them to submit, whether it be a discussion post, a file upload, it could even be a video. Anything in Canvas, and when I say anything, so anything that your students are looking at that they have to submit will be in a blue button. There is always going to be a blue button that either is a square that says take this quiz or submit this assignment, reply to this discussion. It is always going to be located in a large blue button for consistency and for purpose of ease.
Okay, and you've already covered how they would know what the child was to do for the day, right?
So if they are questioning, obviously the first step we want them to go into Teams and to meet with their teacher live. You already mentioned if the teacher was out for the day that they should be checking Canvas. Announcements are constantly posted in both of those platforms for the students to find. And then we mentioned also covering the internet issues. If the internet happens to be out, they can always use their cell phone or a tablet if they have one, and they can download the Canvas app on there as well.
Thank you. And Julia, when there is an absence of a teacher, would that be reflected in Canvas for the students to see?
So when a teacher is absent and they know they're going to be absent, most of the time there was going to be some kind of lesson that has been created for the student, and they will know what to do. A lot of the ones that I've been troubleshooting this week, when you log in as the student, the teacher has a nice button or a place that the child is supposed to click that says this week's assignment. So they would follow the same procedures that they are doing throughout the week, yes.
Thank you. And we had a teacher out this week unexpectedly, and the school principal was able to get on right away and make sure that the students knew exactly what to do for the day. Sometimes somebody will jump on and do a lesson for them, or it'll be an asynchronous lesson, so independent work that they would get that the teacher would then follow up with and do a review the next day. So thank you, Julia, for covering that. You mentioned the app, so let's just mention that one more time to emphasize. If you are in a situation where you cannot access the computer, the laptop, for any number of reasons that we just talked about, always make sure that you already have an app downloaded if you do have a cell phone, because that is a way that you can go ahead and still check what the work is for the day. And on Teams, you can still attend that class. I have attended many meetings on my phone through Teams when I am not able to access the computer. So that is a great option. If you didn't already download it, the directions for doing that are on our My School Online website. So we invite you to go ahead and look there. Okay, I'm sure we'll get back to technology questions when we get to the Q&A portion of our session today. I do want to mention that some of you were issued a laptop in the spring. Well, everybody was issued a laptop in the spring if they needed one, and we are still working to collect a few of those. If you still have your laptop from the spring, we did need you to return that. If you are doing My School Online, you should return your previous laptop and come in and get a new one. If you had a previous one, you will have internet issues because they have disconnected those from the network. So please bring them back and we will gladly exchange it for another computer if you are in My School Online and you need one. And if you are in traditional school, we need it back to be able to issue it to other students. So we appreciate your cooperation in that. Okay, I do want to talk about parent involvement in My School Online, because as we're getting into the school year, we're being asked that question sometimes by parents and sometimes by teachers. So we want you to know what your role is. And really what I want to do is illustrate what does it look like when the parent involvement is not appropriate for online learning, and then what does it look like when it is exactly what we need. So first, let's talk about some problems in parent involvement. One would be if a well-intentioned parent is giving the child answers to the problems that the student is supposed to be doing independently. That really does interfere with the teacher knowing exactly what your child needs to learn. It doesn't help the child with their learning. So please do not help give answers. Do not read questions to the child if it is intended to be a way for the teacher to measure their reading ability. So we ask that you cooperate with that. Students will be testing in My School Online, and one of those tests is called a diagnostic. And when they're taking a diagnostic, it is not for grading purposes. It is for informing the teacher to know exactly how to help your child and where the learning gaps might be, and also where they may be advanced. So if you help your child, the teacher is then going to have higher expectations and maybe not be able to identify gaps quite as early. So we're really asking you to cooperate with that. And then the second example here is when a parent starts interfering with the class by trying to talk to the teacher. And we certainly understand that your child is the most important person to you. And so we understand the motivation for that. And we want you to take the time to talk to your child's teacher. But please don't do it during class time. Other students are involved there. There's privacy issues. And it also does disrupt the teacher's ability to continue the lesson for all students. So that is not the time to express your concern. And then the third example of what not to do is not being involved at all, especially if you have a small child. So please help the child navigate and remove background noises. So let's talk about what is the perfect level of parent involvement. I called it utopia on this slide. The parent ensures that the child has a quiet learning environment with minimal distractions. We do want to make sure that the child isn't distracted and that the rest of the class isn't distracted during the times when the student has their camera on or their microphone on. And we also love it when the parent provides supervision and guidance to the child if needed. Please remain off screen while you're doing that so that the other students are not seeing parents in the class. That in itself is distracting and could interrupt the teacher during class time as well. So if you stay nearby or you're in the next room and your child can call you if they're having technology trouble or if they need something from you. And of course, we encourage you to communicate with the teacher and communicate with the school as you need it. So we just wanted to set those expectations so that you know exactly what we need from you and that our teachers can remind you if that is necessary. And I think at this time we're ready to move to any questions that you might have. So let's turn it back over to Ms. Martin.
All right, thank you so much. I want to start by saying thank you to those who are watching and staying engaged in this process. We definitely appreciate that. We have quite a few comments and questions, so let's just jump right in. One of the comments that I've seen a few times is about there being too many breaks in between lessons and too much independent work for some younger students. Would one of you be able to address that?
Sure. I'm going to make the assumption that those are students that are in My School Online and not quarantine students, so I'll separate very quickly. In My School Online, there should be some independent work, and it should be about the same balance that would happen in a classroom. So we don't have teachers in a classroom lecturing for the entire class period. That would not be very engaging, and it's also not the best way for students to really understand the learning. They need time to practice, they need time to read, so there is independent time. I've seen in some cases where the teacher does have the students turn off their computer and they stay there available for assistance. But there's various ways that the teachers might manage that. Breaks should be very brief. We do brain breaks in class where students stand up and stretch. There is recess time in elementary school, so there should be about a 20-minute recess time, even in my school. And there will also be times where in a normal school day, there would be class changes or subject changes. So there will be intermittent breaks. If you believe there are too many breaks, please do not hesitate to contact the school itself. Speak to an administrator. They can look into it and make sure that the balance is just right and looks the way it should in My School Online. If your child is quarantined, that could be a different situation. There might be a little bit more independent work depending on what that quarantine looks like. And again, please contact the school if you have concerns. You can always contact my office as well in the Office of Teaching and Learning.
Okay, great. Next question I've seen, and we've had this question asked before, the comment about there being too many students in the My School Online classes.
Yes, I mentioned that or alluded to it earlier when I was talking about the class balancing process. I have heard a few people say I've heard people say there's too many students in the class, and I always want to dig a little deeper to see what is meant by too many. If a grade level should have about 25 students in the class and the class has 35 or even 40, depending on the subject, that could be just fine in virtual learning. Once the teacher learns all the tools or the students get into the rhythm. There are automatic graders. There's many conveniences that come with the online learning that make the management a little bit easier for the teacher. However, there are some classes that are too large and will be adjusted once we get through the balancing process. And some of that will improve or change once this last change period happens. You will see those numbers straightening out. And honestly, this is a procedure that happens at the beginning of every single year, and maybe parents are not as aware of it because it happens in the school building, and that balancing takes place so that everything is then straightened out usually within the first 10 days of school. But with these unique circumstances and the people changing their mind about which schedule they wanted, it's going to take a few days longer this year, but it will straighten out. So please, if you are a parent and you feel that way, if you don't see it straighten out shortly, give us a call. If you are a teacher, speak to your principal, and we will be sure to give you the answer and let you know if it is a situation that is going to get a little bit smaller.
The next question, it's actually kind of a two-parter and probably will be able to be answered by Ms. Hilburn. It's about students chatting with one another in class or other students interrupting class by trying to make a video call to another student, even maybe in another school. Ms. Hilburn, can you address how that can be managed?
Sure, I'd love to. So we are working actively with all of our teachers and staff on setting up the proper meeting options with inside of Teams and addressing some of those concerns. There are meeting options that the teacher will set that will eliminate and allow them to gain control of those situations. So we are actively working, I know the talent development team as well as curriculum, working with our teachers to ensure that they are aware of all of these procedures that can take place inside of their My School Teams live meeting to, like I said, stop either the side chatting, the teachers can turn that off completely, and the muting of microphones and so forth. So we are aware and we are working diligently on that.
And may I just add to that as well? Julia covered it brilliantly. But in addition, there are some defaults, and I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but there are some defaults within Microsoft Teams that we are going to be changing so that the teacher won't have to do that manually. That does take a little while to roll out once we start that process, and it is in process right now.
All right, thank you. Another question is about, are teachers required to have a syllabus and inform students of their grading policy? This is probably most likely a secondary school question.
Yes, we always ask our teachers to make sure that the students do know the expectations of the class. So it may not look the syllabus doesn't look exactly the same in every single classroom, but the expectations should be made clear and the grading policy should be made clear. So that question is an excellent question. If you are not seeing that, contact the school administration, and they will definitely address that with the teachers.
Okay, we have a few questions about attendance with My School Online. Some people are wanting to make sure that if their child is having a computer issue, that they won't be marked absent, or if they are, how do they fix that?
Yes, I am getting that question a lot. If it is indeed a computer issue, if it's a district-wide computer issue, the teacher would then be aware. If it is just within your home, it will be important for you to immediately notify the teacher. So if you do have the apps on any phone in the home, send an email, send a chat message, let them know that you're trying to get on. Eventually, we will be at a point where we will most likely ask for evidence of that, especially if it happens repeatedly, that you just get that verified by your internet provider. That is what we do in virtual education. So if Xfinity or any one of the providers goes down for a day, they would be able to verify it. It's usually posted on their website, and you can share that with the teacher. If it is district-wide, the teacher is going to be aware. They're going to work with their class and make sure that they give them another assignment during the potential outage that can be done at home without the access to the computer. They will be marked present, and can I add to that, on the attendance issue, teachers have multiple methods of knowing if your child is there. So I was asked if the computer is not on because the teacher has directed it not to be on for a certain period of time, does the teacher still know? There's many methods that the teachers have at their disposal to determine who is there. And we're going to be adding a new program that students will be able to access within Teams that will even give the teacher more information about that, and it'll be really exciting when we get that rolled out, and we'll probably do a Facebook Live on that new program. So there's going to be advancements coming throughout the year, but right now the teacher has multiple methods to see that your child is in class. So don't worry about that aspect.
Okay, another question asked, is there a consistent way that students should be turning in assignments? One parent commented they see that every teacher has a different method.
Yes, teachers do have various methods. Different subject areas call for different types of assignments and different ways to show what you have learned. The important piece is that the teacher makes it very clear to the child or to their students what methods they are accepting. There are some lessons that lend itself very well to the student just uploading something if they're old enough to understand how to do that, or to a video project, many different ways. So just make sure that it is clear to you as to what the expectation is from that particular teacher.
Okay, another comment is about a few people have commented that the teachers are not coming on to the class live at the correct time, that they're entering the class late. How should a parent handle that, or how should a student handle that?
My suggestion would be, if that becomes a pattern, first contact the teacher, find out if there's a reason for it, and the teacher has a plan to fix that. If it continues, please contact the school administrator. They are the supervisors that supervise the teachers and can correct it right away. And keep in mind, the start of the class, the start of the live class, may not be the very beginning of the period if the teacher has assigned a warm-up exercise and then announces the time. So I'm assuming this question was regarding the announced time.
Another comment is a parent saying they're still having problem accessing Canvas. What are the next steps they should take?
That's a great question. It really does determine on your unique situation. If you are receiving an error message, maybe that your child doesn't have an account with Canvas, then that would definitely be a help desk issue, that 429 help number. If they are getting into Canvas and they have no issues logging on, and then they're not seeing something that you feel that they should, if they're missing a course tile or an assignment is not published, if it falls more on once they are inside of Canvas and they're not seeing something, I would definitely contact the teacher. A lot of our Canvas issues can be resolved right with the student and the teacher and not having to go any further than that. It may just be that the teacher hasn't published that information yet, or they're just not sure exactly where they are looking with inside of the Canvas course.
I was just going to add that you have to remember that the teachers are doing a lot. They have a lot of responsibility, and it could be a very simple omission. For example, if there's an assignment due and you don't see a submit button, that can be so frustrating, I know. And what it means is that the teacher has checked the box that says no submissions. As soon as you tell them it's not there, it's a quick fix. So sometimes it's very, very simple, and you wouldn't need to make a phone call at all.
Another question is, how do the My School parents contact the school administrators if they have a concern?
The easiest way, if you do not have the principal, assistant principal's number right there in front of you, is to look it up on our school district website. You can access all of our school numbers directly through our website, so you don't have to go searching for any individual school. And you can call the main number and ask for the principal or the assistant principal, and you will be directed to them right away.
Okay, another question is regarding students trying to get into the class and waiting to be admitted.
You want to talk about it?
Sure. That is a safety feature that Teams has set up. The teacher sets up who can bypass the lobby, and the reasoning for this is almost exactly what was brought up earlier. If the teacher, something comes up and they may be not able to get into the Teams meeting right at that point, we would want students to almost be waiting in the lobby before entering the class and then not having a teacher in that virtual classroom. So the teacher is the one responsible for admitting students into the class, so they're not there without the teacher.
It's sort of like waiting in the hallway for class to start.
Very much so.
A couple comments about how long waits on the 429 helpline, and I just want those watching to know that those calls have subsided substantially, and today we've only had about 75 calls compared with over 500 on other days. So we know that in the beginning we had a lot of calls, but we do understand that that can be frustrating. But if you are trying to access that number now, you really shouldn't be waiting more than about 10 minutes. So I wanted to mention that. Those are really all the questions that I've seen during this time period. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add as we wrap up today?
I think we've had excellent questions, and we hope these sessions are helpful to you. We do intend on continuing them and addressing concerns as they come up, or making updates and broadening our topics. So we're so glad you joined us today. Julia, was there anything else that you thought needed to be covered?
I don't think so. I think those questions that came through were wonderful, and as mentioned earlier, just as the time goes on, all of these issues are ironing out, and thank you for being patient with us and with your child's teacher.
Okay, once again, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I want to thank Mrs. Martin and the crew here for doing a fantastic job and making sure that we get the questions that you're asking, and so we can provide you answers. And if you still feel you don't have answers, please reach out to someone. Any of us, we're here for you, and we appreciate our partnership. Thank you again.